Another hot day here in Texas. I'm putting on these Raceland coilovers. They're for the Subaru. It's not the first time this has been done, but I'm hoping to bring the first thing most people say, the few I've seen out there is, hey, sorry I didn't go into more detail and things like that. So maybe there's something in here that'll help those that are kind of on the fence to doing it, to go ahead and do it. So I hope this helps. Wondering, this is the part number, I believe. So the production code is Robert Apple 02. Looks like the part number is Robert Apple David James 71. Imagine the Apple David James adjust stands for that. Raceland adjust 71. But anyway, that's the part number. So these are going to be your fronts. They'll be the shorter one of the four, or the two and two. This one comes, this set comes with its own adjustable top, which is all fine and good, but of course we can't use it unless we were going to cut that deal like we were talking about. We don't need to, hopefully, if the nut on top of our piece that we bought is actually going to work with these threads, and I'm going to find that out here in a moment. So it has on this one here, this again is for the WRX, so it has a brake caliper bracket, brake hose bracket. We won't need that. You could cut it off just to save yourself a little room. The top here, you see how this hole is oblong and this is round. In a lot of old GMs and stuff like that, they'd use a process called slotting. And when you slot it, you're basically taking a round hole and ovaling it out like that, so that you can treat this now and let the strut move back and forward. It's to help with camber. So you have this one, and in this case you would have this one, but from what I'm told, I'm not an alignment professional, if you have this on the top, that's pretty much what you need. As far as this goes, you might not need it, but because of our situation, we're going to have to increase the hole size this way instead of that way, because the way the knuckle sits in here, and if you've watched a lot of these coilover videos, taking the Subaru ones and using them on a Saturn, you'll see that all of them have to do that. So on these, they got the lock of the jam nut. This is the that you set the load preset on the spring with. Of course, I'm going to swap over to my springs that I have. Well, I could use these, I guess. It's the rears that I'm going to have to swap over for sure. But it shows you on Raceland's website how to set the preload on here, and I'll show you too. But short of that, this would then come up and lock. That's how you lock it. And then when you're done here setting your preload, right? So, and I'll show you, set your preload, then you're going to lock this up there too. And you can see inside here, it's got a kind of similar configuration to the pillow ball mount that's inside there, so it ought to fit nice as far as those two pieces are concerned. I'm just hoping that ours fits on here as well. This is your adjuster for the softer or hard ride. I'm going to touch on real quick in regards to, like in my case, if you don't already have a set of coilovers on your car, these are the Progress Group coilovers. I would say that the Progress Group was a much better company in terms of quality and thinking the process through. And of course, this is Raceland. It's not BC coilovers. It's not, a high-end company. I'm expecting what I should expect, so don't get me wrong. That's the rear one back there. But this is the front one, right? So when I look at the wounds on the springs, obviously, if I line these up pretty much even with each other, the top to the top, this spring's much longer right here. The distance between these, though, is greater than this. And yes, this is compressed, but at the same time, though, I remember the gap is not as big here. Plus, I can see a slight difference between the wound thickness compared to this wound's thickness. So I did measure these, and this is 0.45 and this is 0.5, just shy of 0.5. So they are thicker wounds than this one. There's the greater distance between them, although this spring is taller. We talk about supporting the weight of the car. That's what the springs do. The struts just handle jounce and rebound, right? Handling of potholes, speed bumps, that kind of thing. So hopefully, now this is for a for a WRX Subaru. This is obviously made specifically for the Saturn. So will this one be more bouncy because it's basically riding off the springs more so than it is utilizing the jounce and rebound of the strut itself? I don't know. But what I'm going to go with right now is the Subaru's engine. It's a 4-cylinder. The weight of the car is probably comparable to a Saturn in some regards. In other words, I'm not putting this from a Challenger to a Saturn, basically. It'd be much different. The engine's much heavier in the front and so forth. There's a lot more weight. So hopefully I'm going to use the front ones as is, but if it comes to it, then I know I have these to fall back on if I want to swap them over. They're in the front, so they're not that bad to get off and change over. These were basically pretty easy to do. One other thing in the back, we talked about this is a rear one. Of course, you can see on here it doesn't have your adjustments. It does have some mounting plate bolts here. But this just has the adjustment for soft and firm ride, and like I showed you that the extension, it's here somewhere, right there. I showed you this extension is going to get basically put on that thing, and it'll basically reach out, and you'll be able to adjust it in the back easier. Obviously, this goes in the back. So yeah, seeing with this is the old Progress rear spring. And you can see on the wounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then on the one I've got replaced, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 3 wounds shorter. And you can see compressed to the same height that I would have had it. It's a little bit shorter. You can see it's a little bit shorter here on this end. So this is a much stiffer spring than the factory Progress, or say the replacement Progress. These are the factory ones that are on the front. I think I'm going to use these on those Racelands just to make sure I get the spring rate that I want. I'm not sure. I'm going to look at it and make a note. But before I mess with anything, I'm going to measure from here to probably this point here and make sure that I've got these things pretty much the same ride height, so that that overall is just a 1-for-1 replacement as far as ride height goes, so I ain't got to spend too much time messing with that type stuff. Box, it's got these, I'm not sure exactly what they are. I'd imagine it has to do with the pillow ball there. I'll figure it out and let you know. They're two of one type and 2 of another. So I guess from the bottom and the top it goes in. I'm not sure. There are no instructions in here, so you're on your own. Unless it's on the back here. Nope, no instructions. Maybe on the actual site it'll tell you, and I'll check into it and let you know. And one other thing too I noticed, and this is pretty cool, because when you stick it up inside the strut tower, you see that these bolts here, or whichever, might be a little bit hard to get to. So it looks like they give you alternative bolt holes to use. So maybe if this one's easily accessible, the way you have it in there, maybe by just moving this one to this next hole, it'll keep it from getting shrouded from the actual strut tower. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, so setting preload. Basically what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to loosen this jam nut down, okay? And then you're going to want to loosen this jam until you break free up here, okay, to where you got some play up here. You now have a gap. At that point, you're going to bring that right back up. You're going to bring it right back up to where you do now you're basically going to wait till it basically seats. And then by hand, screw it a little bit more past that point. Okay, don't use a tool. You just want to use it by hand. When you can't screw it up anymore by hand, you've now set your the first step of preload, okay? Now the second step is done, so you haven't touched anything here past what you've already just now done, right? So you're gonna bring this jam nut up and you're gonna seat it against that one. Keeping this one where it's at, you're now gonna use the spanner wrench to turn this one to raise it a little bit. And your goal is, when it's all said and done, when this raises up, you want to get it, remember, this one's not turning at all during this time, just this one. So as this one goes up, it's going to distance itself from this lock nut, and you want to distance it from this lock nut the width of one of these spanner wrenches like that. So again, you're going to raise it off of this perch here to you until you are able to slide one of these in between there. Once that's the point, of course, now you'll have that gap here. You're gonna bring this one up and lock it up against that one, and that sets your preload. So what I've done here is I screwed this down by hand, and you see the play now? See that? At this point, you're gonna run this up by hand, okay? You see which way it's gonna go. It's going down. So you run this up by hand until you seat that. See how that's turning now? I can probably go a little bit more, and I can't do it with one hand, but I'm going to tighten it till I can't tighten anymore by just using my hand with all this not spinning. At that point, I'm going to bring this jam nut up, stop it. Now I'm going to take the spanner and I'm going to turn this top jam nut up and leave this bottom one alone. Don't let it move, and you're going to get that space in between the top and bottom jam nut. When you get that distance, run this bottom one up, lock it, and you're set. That's your preload. All right, so the preload is off. Obviously, you can see this goes up and down. It's got your dust boot here for your piston rod. This is basically your top hat, if you can look at it like that. So this is the factory Raceland adjustable upper mount. So you take this bolt off here, this nut, and my original concern was that the top hat that I bought, this one wasn't going to work with them. Like perhaps the inside of here was going to be too large or too small. And so as we take this off, we take this over to this table. This is the nut that came with the Mookie, and then this is the nut that came off the Racelands. So you can see it's different. It's also not as deep. It looks quite a bit different. I don't think that this one's going to screw on here. Yeah, see? It's too big. So the good news is, it turns out that not only does the top nut of this and the bottom one, as you lift this one off, you'll see that bottom, this is what this bottom one here looks like. You'll see this bottom one here. If you slide this Mookie one on, it goes right up into here, no problem. And then, of course, since you're just reusing the same nut that came off of it, no worries. And it does go right down into that pillow. So perfect. Screws down, and then my next concern was maybe it wouldn't bottom out. And as you can see, it does. So this ought to be just fine. This works good. It's just a simple swap over of this Mookie with the one that came with it. So no cutting needed, no adjustments needed. So that's pretty good. Okay, so now that I have this on and I've set this down, tightened it, now I went ahead and I've moved this up until I was holding on to here until I couldn't tighten it any further by hand, just by using my hand. So now I'm going to ring this up. I'm going to seat this here, right? And from here, I'm going to use the tool to bring this top lock ring up, okay? All right, so the preload is set. I need to screw this back up here and set it up against here. But before I do that, I'm going to mark this where it's at, and I'm going to raise it up about a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to put some anti-seize there. And I'm also going, when I bring it back down, I'm going to put anti-seize just below it where this is going to sit. Because with these threads and these lock rings, sometimes they get seized on here and they're pretty tough to move once all the dirt and grime gets up on there. So putting some anti-seize on there, although it don't look real pretty, it'll save you a lot of hassle. And you'd want to do it on this one too, wherever you set your ride height to. So on this one here, obviously to set ride height, you're going to be screwing this up and down into this base, and that's how you set your ride height. Okay, so just it won't look too pretty, but this will all be behind the wheel, so it don't much matter, but it'll save you a lot of hassle in the long run. And I would go ahead, because I just test fit them, they're going to be shrouded enough. Now I realize you're not going to have to pull these all the way out and put them back in, but when you have them in, these outer ones here, they are pretty shrouded, and it may be an issue of getting the Allen key in there. So I would just go ahead and move these both to the inners, and you ain't got nothing to worry about. Might as well do it now, and they're easy to undo and adjust down. Also put Loctite on these too, because, you know, for the same reason, you don't want to get them seized in there. If I'm right, this is aluminum, this is probably stainless or something like that. So just to keep any issues down, put some anti-seize on these threads as well. In case you wonder if you pull these out and they get discombobulated, they fall off, whatever, this is the arrangement. Washer goes on the bottom and that little plastic washer goes on top. And done. So use the 2 center holes, give yourself that adjustment. I'll show you what it looks like on the car. So they're in here on the top, just demonstrating. You see now the Allens would be much easier to reach. You look directly over, and there they are. So again, you might have been able to adjust and the other ones, but the back hole, like back here, would be kind of tough. Again, I don't even know if you could get an Allen wrench in there enough. You wouldn't have had to take it out, you just loosen it, but then when you go to tighten it, what if you end up more back this way than you do forward? Well, one of these two are going to get exposed or covered up. So move them to the center. Their only job is to hold what you adjust it to. And on these here, remember, you can tighten them up just to get it to hold it up here while you get your bottom sorted out. But in the end, wait till you get the weight of the vehicle on the ground, like with the tire on and everything, before you torque these to final torque. I know on the factory ones, I went too tight one time and tore off a stud of one of my friend's cars. Had to get him a new upper strut mount. But on these here, you're good to get them to about 25 foot-pounds when you get it on the ground. Get the weight of the car on it with the tire and all that, set down full weight, then tighten them down to 25 foot-pounds. That's my recommendation. All right, so one side is on. What I've done is I've just set this to basically in the middle of these little tick marks over here. Obviously, when I get it aligned, they'll play with all that. But you see what I was meaning to say was, if you look here, if you get directly over it, you see this hole here is almost shrouding that Allen head. So if you do have to go back this way a little bit, if you were in that rearmost position back there, look how shrouded it is. So you're going to need to loosen these, adjust it, and then tighten them. And so that's why I moved them to the center position. I encourage you to do it too. So yeah, this is the adjuster as I talked about. It looks like everything's seating in here pretty good. Everything's nice and tight. Your stock nuts will fit these threads on here, so whoever did this made sure of that. That was good. And so here's on the bottom. So what I did, again, I set the pre-tension on the spring. You can see I put some anti-seize pretty much around where they're at. If you ever need to adjust it lower or higher than this, you'd want to go in here and clean it with brake clean, a little scrub brush, some, get that cleaned off, then to move it up and down. But same thing here. Once you get the ride height adjusted, this is your lock for that. You can see I've got the camber adjustment bolts here. I'm not an alignment guy. I get the concept, but as far as how to adjust it out, I don't know if the camber plate up top is going to be enough to adjust it to where I would need it. So I put this in here. If it helps, it helps. If it don't, it don't. But this is this is a camber bolt. Here's the factory bolt and stuff. And of course I did do the cut on it, made it fit. All that's good. Painted it. The only thing I did in the back, you got these brackets on here. All I did, so there was a bracket hanging off of here. I cut it off and painted it. I didn't want any obstruction with my inlet. And then on this side, there's another bracket. And of course, I guess this would be like on the stock Subaru. There's something here and something on the other side. Probably the brake hose support, which we don't need that here. I checked, it's not going to interfere. And this is threaded. Maybe at some point I might need it for something, to support something, I don't know, but I left it. But if you didn't want to, you could just take a reciprocating saw and just slice it right off and paint it so it don't rust up. But yeah, 1 down, 4 to go. The backs won't be as hard because I don't have anything to do with the camber adjustment plates. They don't have them in the back. But yeah, we'll see how it rides and adjust the ride height once we get going. Okay, so in the end, I just want to show you real quick the bottom hole. On this particular Raceland part number, you see how the top hole is slotted left to right? Well, in order to get the one on the bottom to set, just so you know, and you may already, I'm just trying to help those who may not understand the process, you want to slot it up and down this way. And what I found is I did kind of I basically took this off and lined it up kind of face to face with these brackets facing each other on the progress springs and coilovers. And I knew it would be opposite if I did it this way, but I figured it would be for the opposite side, and I can do the same way for the other one to make it work out. But I bolted the top bolt on to the actual coilover of the progress, and then moved this one around and then painted where I needed to grind away. So I did the pilot hole first, then I did a stepper bit, and of course that's only going to work so much, and then you break out your grinder, and then that's what you get. So make sure you paint these things after you're done, clean it up, paint it. But again, the top hole, if you use this specific part number, is slotted left to right. You're going to want to slot it up and down on the bottom, okay? On these inner nuts, you're going to want to make sure to, when you tighten them, like I said, put your Loctite, no, not your Loctite, your anti-seize on those as well. But remember, you're taking steel and putting it in the metal. So as you tighten these down to hold them in place, you don't gotta put 1,000 foot-pounds torque in them. You just tighten them up snug, okay? Because if not, you're gonna strip these things out, and that's not good because you've only got 4 to secure this thing from moving in and out once you get the camber adjusted, all right? Well, guys, part of being a Saturn god is making mistakes. All right, so on the Raceland coilover install, I did the fronts first because I thought that'd be the lion's share of the work, cutting the hole for the, you know, for the knuckle to mate up for the lower mounting points and messing with the top hat and all that good stuff. Well, I 50% of that, and I got those ones from Muke or whatever, the top hat portion, so I didn't have to do any cutting. So I got the bottom portion done. They fit great. Everything's fine. They're all mounted up, both of them up front now. So I turned my attention to the rear. Quick recap. I had 2 sets of Progress coilovers. One has been on this car forever. The other set was on that red car I had here, the 95. That one had hardly seen any use. And the backs from Progress Group, they had told me the rears were valved for drag racing so that the back would squat so much, you know, like a regular set would. So all these years later, these finally, and I'd actually rebuilt these once before already. I had bought a rebuild kit from Progress, rebuilt them. That kit's no longer available. So I started hunting for aftermarket options, and here we are. But then I decided to get rid of that red coupe, so I went ahead and took those off, put them on here, and just swapped all the springs and all that stuff over. Well, not long after that, I started hearing that banging that you might hear in some of my videos as I'm driving, coming from the rear only, and it was more pronounced from the right-hand side. I replaced trailing arms. I looked and I looked, and I didn't so much see a problem with the strut, but then I thought, okay, well, these things are old just like the other ones, because I got them about the same time. Maybe they're just valved, the valves inside are dead or whatever. Enter the idea for Raceland. I'm not going to say this was a waste because, like I said, I do want the adjustability for the valving, but I have to be honest with you. I paid the money for this kit, but I don't have a lot of faith that this valving is A, either going to do what it says it does, or B, even if it does, it won't do it for very long. It's just the quality of the product itself. Nothing against Raceland. It's a price point. And if that fails, then you still have the ride height adjustability and stuff like that, which is the lion's share of why people want to buy coilovers anyway, to adjust the ride height. But so I got the front done first, okay, and that involved, like I said, cutting the lower bracket and also cutting off the Subaru brake hose attachment that's there, painting it and all that stuff. So any thoughts of returning these for warranty is out the door. Plus, I'd gotten them back in, I think, May, and it's August now. And so they had a 30-day free return, used or not, which, again, if they're not willing to stand behind them for more than 30 days, that's kind of a signal. But at the same time, like I said, I was more focused on the front and making sure I had got this correct and all that. So I go to do the back. I looked up Progress Group, the coilover, I guess you can say the spring rates forum. And I think I could pull up the email because I have it in email. But I think if I'm thinking right, it was 300 front, 250 in the back or something like that. Well, these from Raceland say they're 500 front, 300 in the back, which I don't know why, because the only thing I can think of is a Subaru being all-wheel drive, although both of them are 4 cylinders. Maybe the transaxle is heavier because it's, basically transaxle transfer case. It's going to send the weight of the power back to the rear wheels and so forth. So I'm not sure. So I said, okay, no problem. So I am using the stock, or say the Raceland springs in the front. I'm going to see how they ride. If they ride terrible, I'll just take them down and replace them with the Progress springs I had. No harm, no foul. Those are easy to get to. You don't have to take the package tray off the back like you do here and so forth. So I start looking at these back here. So I've got this one torn down. Spring, I'm going to swap the spring over. Then I tear down the one that I took off the back here. This is the upgraded spring. This one's a 400 pounder from Progress. Same interior diameter, more or less same length. If you set this one over here next to it, it's just a hair bit, it's just one wound shorter. So, but the good thing is on the Progress springs, the shock body is only threaded that much. On this one, the whole darn thing's threaded. So I'll have a lot more adjustability, high, low, and so forth. So there's another plus. And obviously, like I said, the firmness. So I get the nut off. Now I've had these things off a couple times. And the only thing I can think of is when I put these springs on last, when I put the top hat on, this must have been when it happened. But the clue was right side was louder than the left side. Why? Because of that. I've got the weight of this turbo back over here. What's happened is, now all this, I didn't even have to do all this unless, like I said, I wanted the better adjustability, the firmness, and all that good stuff. Look at this. Boop. That's where my noise was from, right there. Same over here. The only reason I didn't see it before is when I took them out just to inspect them, when the noise was bad, I didn't disassemble them. And here's this. This sucker, I'll just push it through. There it is. So, yeah, I suspect that was the source of my noise all along. It's like a motor mount, right? When the rubber gives, they collapse. So this thing was just sitting here, boom, 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 up and down. It wasn't doing anything. So, yeah. But unlike some people, when they screw up or they make a wrong call, and again, I don't know if I can say this is even a wrong call. I did want the firmness so I could adjust it at the track, blah, blah, blah. But for the price of a couple upper strut mounts, I could have been done already. So guess what? There's going to be a set of, actually there's going to be two sets. Well, I don't know. Yeah, probably two sets of Progress coilover coming available here shortly. I'll probably put them on eBay. I'll make the announcement on my site, on my little YouTube page, and then you can go and bid on them or whatnot. I'm not going to ask a whole lot for them. They are quality compared to these here. They just don't have the firmness and all that stuff. But like I said, if it does work, how long, at the price point, I'm not sure. They're not BCs, obviously. So, but anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. What a goof. And this is probably why the guys in these other videos don't show you what they do for the rear. So this is your factory top hat. A lot of people like using these for the rear because you don't have to worry about any bearings like you do in the front or anything like that. So this is more or less just a rubber isolator is what it does. And of course the spring sets up around here. You can see the spring where it's been depressed inside there. And then this is the one that they send. Of course this has that pillow ball in here. And if you try to use this, you run into the same situations that you ran into up front. However, it's in the back and it's even more difficult because you're back there in the back package tray. You've got the rear windshield there. Nightmare. So I was thinking, you know, because of what's happened here, I'd have to get a new upper strut mount anyway. But if I do that, look at this. This would slide over on top of here. Because now, well, what I could do is just cut this whole rubber section off and just use this piece as this rubber cushion. Cut this off because this is not being used to interface with the spring anymore. It'd be this. Of course, it has a nylon seat here. So this would just be used to bolt up into the top of the car. So yes, cut this off. So now it'll sit down flush on top of here. And then use the bolts and such that came with this thing, which of course is this one. And it fits perfectly into here. And then of course it works by sliding over there and you obviously screw it onto the threads here. So if I try to use this one, even if I cut off this back section, this is that piece that came out, right? Well, when I slide it over, it's too big. That's way too big. So what to do? I need some way to mount this up on top. The only way would be then to do that workaround to this piece. Then I thought, well, this has bolts on it. Is there some way that I can take this off, this centerpiece here, so I can use the pillow ball? If I can do that and incorporate it into here, my problem's is solved. I have this to interface with the strut tire in the back, and then I have this to interface here, and of course be able to accept this factory bolt. Question is, how do I do that? I guess I could take a so the concern won't be on the bottom here. The concern will be on the top if I use this. So if I cut this off, I'll take this, bring it over here, drill 4 holes through the rubber. And I think there's a metal plate in here as well. I can feel it. So if that's the case, that plate, as long as I use a large washer for this, but I think these are like flush mount screws. I might have to use a different screw. But if I use a large washer, then that would give me as much surface contact as I can get here. And that'll back up having this plate on there. So I think that's what I may do. I'll just drill 4 holes through here, large enough to pass through these bolts. And the width of this thing, This is thicker somewhat. Since this is trash, this is going to be my experimental piece, and I'll see what I can do on this. So it'll put them somewhere around here, I guess. Huh. All right, so I'll show you what I end up doing. I'm gonna think some way around it. All right, so here this piece is off, right? So there's that. It's got little bitty washers that sit down inside this recess. I took this piece. This is the stock top hat. Cut it off, and if you've ever wondered what's in here, it's not just rubber. There is some metal. It's a metal ring in here, and of course, I'm sure that's what's formed and holding these things in. This is just rubber coated for the most part. So the idea is I want to try and wallow out this rubber here, right? Because I want to sit this inside here to where it goes flush, okay? And then I'm going to drill the holes through here to mount those holes. And hopefully what that'll end up at that point being is this goes through here all nice. It's not so thick that these bolts can't reach through this rubber. If so, I might have to just source some little bit longer ones. And if that's the case, that's the end of my problem. I can use this top hat so I don't have to fabricate anything here, which I looked at that initially, and that's going to be even worse. So that I can use everything that's stock on here without having to take a bushing, bore it out, and get creative and all this other crap. So that's my plan. At some point, you guys are going to have to start giving OSG a little love. So, it turns out, if you cut out that you're basically going to take your, I'm going to show you, you're going to have to cut that piece off the back, right? Like I showed you. But when you do that, you're going to be left with that metal ring I showed you. When you do that, cut around, just use this as like a line, just inside these little wedges inside here. Just cut this, flip it over, cut that rubber out. That thing presses perfectly inside there. Perfect. Now we can mark our holes back here, and like I said, I'm going to squish it up a little bit higher. I can work a little bit more of that rubber, get that out of there, and then drill my holes through here. And if I have to, obviously get some larger nuts to where I can get down and reach this thing, bolt it down, tighten it down. Bob's your uncle. You can use this on this with this top hat. So I'm not going to, now again, I'm ashamed to say that all this is happening because I had my head up my butt and I didn't take the proper look that I should have. But again, I am doing it for several other reasons and things like that. So, but I sure could have saved the, what was it, 400, 600, whatever it was, to get this set. So that works perfect. Once that metal ring is exposed, clean that rubber out of there, and when you're done, it should fit just right up inside here like that. Just a perfect squat. And then of course there you go. It's sitting on top just like that. Okay, like I said, it's got to come down a little bit more. I'm going to clean this up some, drill my holes, but for all intents and purposes, that is the fix. So here's the piece you cut off, right? And you do it. You could use like a hacksaw like that, but man, you're going to be there all day. So if you don't have one, buy one, find one, you can borrow one, but the reciprocating saw is your best buddy at that point. Get you a vise, set it in this way, cut down, Bob's your uncle. And what's fortuitous about it is, I thought, you know, before I found this little fix, I thought I was going to have to buy another set of strut mounts for the back. I'm just going to cut these up and use these, because the one problem that was wrong with them was the center portion, and that's fixed now. This will be my last entry. Provisions running low. Oxygen is crucial level. Alright, so bring your patience when you're drilling these holes, because this dang thing seems like it's all metal for the most part. So it's going to take some patience, but I've marked them. I've just wanted to get one drilled so I could get it fed through here so I could really reliably mark the other ones. But as you can see, even with this bolt here, you're not going to have to do any, I mean, it's rubber, so as long as you get it through here and get it fastened, you'll be okay. I ended up using a 1/4 inch bit, and that fits nice and tight around the bolt, but I would wallow it out maybe a little bit more, maybe even use a 5/16 just to give you the hole size you need, so that if you're not spot on perfect drilling this hole, you can move it around a little bit, and the goal is to get it into here and fasten it. Now, why go through all this is because it'd be the same dang thing had I this rubber section moving up and down. So yes, this fits kind of snug up in here, but it's not secure enough. It needs to be bolted down, much like this would be if it was still molded in part of this mount assembly. So this does have to be bolted down. So yeah, so take it easy. If you know anything about drilling, you put that drill bit as slow as it can go, and you put light pressure, and you'll see those little bits spitting out. And like I said, just bring your patience. It's going to be a minute. We got to do 3 more plus 4 on the other. Yeah, such is love of sport and idiocy, where I didn't know that all I needed was an upper strut mount to make the other one still work. But we live and learn. Anyway, so yeah, second thing, you're going to need longer bolts. You see, even it's flush back there, maybe even pressing a little bit to get past the rubber part, it's not going to make it to the flange. So I'd say about another 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 inch. You can't be, well, I'll say you can't be too long, but keep in mind, once this thing's bolted on here, it don't so much matter what's protruding down underneath, because it's not going to hit anything. If I can get this thing to stand up here, this slides over here, so all your bolts would be sticking out here. You don't want them so long they're hitting this, but maybe 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch longer in that thread. And you don't even have to really use these. Just get the right thread pitch and whatnot. And I'm going to look to see if I have any already. I may. I'm not going to show the rest of them from here. I'm just showing you what I did to make this stuff work. You don't need to see me do every one of them. I might just show you the finished product for the one as these gets bolted on here. And that's about it. The rest of it's straightforward. There's the same old drill thing down at the bottom portion here that you did on the front. I may delete that bracket. More than likely will. But short of that, yeah, where I thought I was going to have some real issues, I don't. And I'm able to use it in the configuration that they want us to use them, just without using that. So I say this is the easier way. This is all being done on a workbench. Had I wanted to do it that way, we'd be all up in the back. It'd just be a nightmare. Had some of these bolts from my stores. I got some others. I just quickly picked it. The difference here, you can see the length. Now I just ran these through just to get it to work. And you can see it's seated. It's got that big washer on it, so it'll distribute the weight great. Passes through, engages it, goes through. Now of course this probably would be too long to use, so I could then just cut it off where I need it to. And I don't have to go buy anything. I've got the big washer already built into it, and so forth. So yeah, that's the last entry. There'll be 4 of these, one on each side. When you're doing it, the one thing you just want to keep in mind, if I had positioned that part further over here, then I'm going to have this, potentially, this would interfere with this bolt. So you're going to have to put it in a way that it doesn't do that. There's going to be one right over here, one probably right here, one right here. So basically, just try to orientate it in a way where they don't interfere with anything. But that's pretty much it, and then you'll be set. And last but not least, the size that you'll need, like the bolt that you may end up using, is going to be an M6 by 1.0. That's the threads that are in this thing. All right.